Hello, Divine Feminine, and welcome to your power message for Monday, Magical Monday. And I love this. Look at this. We've got a gorgeous frog on the calendar, and we've been receiving so many messages in the readings about frogs. So this is a huge sign about things leaping forward, things changing. You know, you realizing that the masculines are transforming for you and are about to make their move and leap forward. So this is a great sign of magic ahead. And it says, I recognize my body as a good friend. So I feel this is really about understanding the way your body is talking to you and the way it's working for you, not against you. So we learn as an empath and a light worker to listen to our bodies and to listen to our feelings and our heart and our emotions. So our body speaks to us in many ways. And when we recognize our body as a friend, not a foe, then we realize what we're going through has meaning. So this is also about ascension. If you're feeling aches, pains, if you're having throat chakra issues, if you're feeling nauseous, tired, your body is giving you messages. Sometimes those messages are about you and things you need to do or change to feel better and at peace. And most importantly, to release stress and feel at ease with your journey. But also your body gives you signs about what your masculine's experiencing and where you are on your spiritual path. When we go through ascension, we are preparing for things, getting ready for the next level. Our body is being activated to handle the lessons ahead, the road ahead becoming clear. So when we recognize our body as a friend and a good friend, then we don't worry about what we're going through physically, because we know that God would not give us anything that we can't handle. And we learn how to communicate with angels and our guides. So we learn to have more peace and less stress. So instead of panicking if something's wrong, we can call on Archangel Raphael. We can call on Jesus for a miracle in our physical self. And then we feel at peace with what's happening. You know, it's very powerful how our body is showing us things collectively and personally too on our journey. And you know, if you're a light worker, if you're giving of service right now, if you're helping, healing, giving readings, connecting with people, or you know, being of service in any way, then your body is going to be reacting or responding to what's going on. So if we're not shielding ourselves properly, we can feel drained, we can take on other people's pain too much. You know, we have to learn how to cleanse ourselves, whether that's through saging or breath work or cleansing, you know, going in nature, however you decide to cleanse your vibration and your aura will work for you. But if we don't do that or we forget to do it, then we can take on other people's pain and we can carry around their burden. And when we're collectively channeling, you know, when I'm channeling energy, I constantly pick up with the way things are happening physically. But I've managed to learn how to handle that over the years. You know, when I first started dealing with that, it was very stressful. You know, I'm going back years now. You know, it really, my body started kicking in that way in around 2010. So around that time, between 2010 and 2012, it was a real struggle for me because I thought I was dying a lot of the time. You know, why am I experiencing this? I have many trips to the accident unit, to the doctors, and now I rarely go, touch wood, because I understand now what's my energy, what's collective energy, what's my divine masculines and your divine masculine's energy, because I recognize my body as a good friend. And I feel this is something you're either doing right now or learning to do right now too. So you don't panic, you know, we don't get sucked into things in the world either, like it's this or it's that or what other people say, because you know your body. You know your body and you know what you're experiencing and what you're going through. And you know if you're going to be okay. You know, maybe using a pendulum puts your mind at rest. You know, what I do, you know, because we do overthink as divine feminines and as light workers, we do. So we need our minds putting at rest sometimes. That's why we have readings. That's why we watch channels like this one and connect. So what I do for me personally is, instead of reaching for a card deck, once I call on the angels and calm myself down, if I'm going through anything physically, is grab my pendulum. Because it's the quickest way to calm me down in my personal experience. It may work for you too. So I grab my pendulum and they give me fear. anytime I personally go into fear, and this is something you can do too, I grab my pendulum and the first thing I say is, am I okay? And it always spins around to a yes, because of course I'm okay. I'm here, I'm alive, I'm thinking straight. Well, maybe not when I'm stressing out, but I'm connecting with heaven. So I'm okay. And that takes a little bit of the worry away. And then I start asking questions. Will I be okay? Do I need to go anywhere? See anyone? And the angels always reassure me I'm okay. I remember once when I was working in my previous job, and I used to, crazy things. I always have issues with my eyes. Like, you can guarantee if something's going to go in my eye, it will. Okay, I've even done it when I'm washing the dishes, water goes in my eye, things flick in my eye. When I went to see Lion the Witch in the Wardrobe on Wednesday, some of the paper that was coming down in the snow that they got on stage went in my eye. So if something's going to go in my eye, it will. And, I remember once I was at work in my previous job, and how I did it, I don't know. I flicked sellotape in my eye. A little bit of sellotape. Now, I was on my own in the shop I was in, and I could have really had a stressful time with that. I mean, that could have been very, very serious. But what I did was, because I was recognising my body, that my body's a good friend, the first thing I did was shouted to Archangel Raphael in my head, and I heard him speak very clearly to me. And he told me what to do, how to get it out, and it come out like that. Piece of sellotape. What are the odds of that, So I trusted my gut instinct and what I was being shown and what I was feeling, even though I knew it was coming from Archangel Raphael, not me. But you could feel that, or, tune into that as your higher self, telling you what to do to bring about the solution for your own good. So we learn to listen to our body, not just through our physical symptoms, but through our intuition, our gut instinct, and our own head and mind, without the ego there. And you'll know when you're connected with angels, but especially Archangel Raphael, because in those types of situations, he's very straight with you. He'll tell you exactly how to do it in a very forceful way. There's no messing around. That sellotape had to come out in that moment. Otherwise, it would have caused me major complications. So he was very clear and precise, and I listened to that guidance, and it happened. It's like, obviously about Doreen Virtue and her transition now, but in her early days, when she was on fire with the angels, when she was on form, she spoke about how she was in a carjacking and how she heard the voice of Archangel Michael telling her what to do and how to handle that situation. And I really resonate with that because, when I was younger, okay, when my dad died when I was younger, and this is quite a personal story, but they guided me to share it with you. When my dad died, I was running a pub at the time, and I was young, I was like, and you say young, young compared with how I am now spiritually, that's what I mean, not physically. So, physically I was like in my early 20s, and I remember, I'd got to go back to the pub and go from my mum's house to the pub, and there was all these things going on, and I had to take some stuff from my mum's house to the pub where I was running and living at the time. And it was a very stressful time. My dad had died, I was very tired, and I'd been crying, and I looked a mess. And I remember I had my hair in pigtails, and my sister's husband hired a van, with removal people, but they weren't really proper professional removal people. They were just like a man in a van to take me to my pub. And at the time, I was in Stoke and the place was in Sandbach, and I didn't really know. Well, it was in Nantwich, but I had to go through Sandbach, and I didn't really know where I was going, because I don't drive, so I don't know the route. And I was distressed, I was in a state because my dad had died. So I was in this van with these two men who were taking me to this place. And, there was three of us. There was two men in the front and me at the side. So we're all sitting in the front of this van. And all of my stuff was in the back because I was moving it to the pub. And, I just remember thinking something's not right here. And I remember my mobile phone at the time. And, this is going back years. So I had one of those really old Nokia phones, with Snake and everything on. And my battery was ready to die. And I was in a state, and I didn't know where I was going. And I knew something felt off because I felt it in my body that something was going to happen. I had intuition about it even then. So even then, my angels, my guardian angel was around me, warning me there was something going on. And, you know, the closer we were getting there, and it's in the country and stuff, they were acting really weird. And they started saying to me, oh, you know, how old are you? And I told them how old I was, and they were like, no, you're not. You're about 15, 16. Because I got my hair in pigtails and I'd been crying, I was distressed. And they ended up parking up in the middle of nowhere and trying to coax me to get out of this van. And, you know, it's very hard for me to talk about this because this happened, you know. And I don't know what made me do it, but I know it was the angels. They guided me to pick up my mobile phone and call the pub. And I got like 1% battery on my phone. They didn't know that, but I did. And I got in touch with my assistant manager and I got her to tell me where it was. So I gave them the directions and I said, look, they were like saying we're lost and all these stupid things. We're lost, we're lost. How can they be lost when that's their job to drive people around, you know? So I put her on speaker and she gave the directions out. Now, during this, okay, my battery died and the call cut off. But they didn't know that. So I just pretended then that I was talking to her all the time and they started the van back up and they drove me there. And I just remember I walked into that pub and I just burst into tears and I got some of the regulars around, they were holding me and stuff. And I don't know how I did it, how I got back there. And it happened again, you know, it happens. You know, this is years before, but it happened when I was very young and because I was working in pubs, you know, I worked in the pub trade for quite a long time in my early life. And I was working in a bar and I finished work really late and I got a taxi. And at the time there was a big kind of thing going on in the world with taxis, especially where I was, where people were kidnapping people in taxis and, you know, raping them and doing all kinds of crazy things. And I got a taxi from work back to my house where I was living. And he took me up a side road and there's this place near where I used to live called Parkhall Hills. And, you know, it's in the middle of nowhere. And he drove me and parked up. And he went out, got out of the car. And he come round to the front of the car with 2 cans of beer. And said, do you want a beer? And I'd just finished work. I'd done a big shift at work. I was young. I was tired. And I listened to my gut instinct. And my gut instinct was telling me to stroke his ego. You know, and say, not tonight. Can we meet tomorrow night? And try and make out as if, you know, I'm going to meet him another night. And luckily it worked. And he drove me home. And obviously I got home. I didn't tell him where my actual home was. I made him like drop me somewhere else. And then I rang up and reported the taxi. And luckily they sorted it out. But that was listening to my intuition. You know, without doing that, anything could have happened. You know, I don't know what he intended to do to me. And this is how we have to be so careful. You know, not just as females, you know, but as men too, you know, these things happen to both men and women. So we have to be on guard and listening to our body and recognizing when we feel something's off because we have an inner guidance system that shows us that. So I feel, you know, they're guiding me to obviously share those experiences for a reason, to let you know that these things happen. And we just feel it inside because those things are coming from our gut and our higher self and our intuition, but also from our angels and our guides. And they will help you to recognize what to do. I recognize my body as a good friend. So in those moments, both of those incidences, and there's been many other times things like that have happened to me, but I've recognised what I'm feeling. I know something's about to happen or something's not right. And then I've been able to respond, you know, not really reacting, responding in the right way by listening to, you know, my intuition and what to do and my angels and guides. And that's the message that's coming through today. Wow, what an intense conversation for a Monday morning. So I'm going to bring in the Divine Feminine Message Tarot today. So what do we need to know? So I feel you could see frogs today as a reminder to you of the magic that's happening and that you're learning how to recognise and trust yourself and your body and how it feels, and that your body is a good friend to you even if you feel like there's something wrong. You know, there's a reason why you're experiencing what you're experiencing. And also, you know, to remind you, let me grab this too, that if you are going through things physically and you want more information, you can always get the Louise L. Hay book, Heal Your Body. There is a bigger version of this called how to heal your life, and I've got both. But the reason I keep this on the table by me is because it's got an appendix of every single physical thing you can go through and the reason why. So you may think, well, the reason is I've got this, or the reason is I've got that, but we go to the spiritual reason. For example, if you're going through, let me just pick one, we've got gallstones. If you've got gallstones, and you might think, oh, it's because of the things I've eaten or the things I've been doing. The reason is bitterness, hard thoughts, condemning, pride. And then it gives you the affirmation to use to heal it, which gets to the root of the problem. Instead of just taking medication or drugs to heal it, on the outside, the surface level, this gets to the root of it and heals it. There is joyous release of the past. Life is sweet and so am I. So sweetness heals bitterness. So, anything you're going through, the way you heal it is through the fruit of the Spirit and kindness and joy. So the energy is the Hanged Man. Look at this. I am learning to observe my thoughts. What a powerful message. Isn't that powerful with this message? I recognize my body as a good friend, and I am learning to observe my thoughts. I'm learning to become the observer. So that means you notice what's going on and respond instead of reacting. So you know exactly what to do for your higher good and for the higher good of all. So the delay creates the way. The Hanged Man is about delays, obstacles, challenges. These things happen. So we learn to navigate around our life and to recognize how our body speaks to us and our intuition, how it guides us, and to listen and trust our angels and the messages we receive to handle any and every situation. So today, whatever's going on, whatever you're dealing with, if you're going through something right now that's causing you pain, or you're going through a stressful situation, become the observer of that and say, okay, what is this teaching me right now? How am I learning through this experience? Isn't that interesting and fascinating? Because it is. And the angels are always protecting us and will always give us the way out of a situation like they did with me. Sometimes we have to go through things like that to learn and grow. But most of the time, the angels will give you guidance to respond. And, it reminds me of, I've got to say this because, you guys know that I've been facing my fears a lot, going on roller coasters and dealing with that. And, even now, there's still fear there, because it's the fear of being safe. And I know that, even though it's more likely that you get hit by a car on the way to the theme park than anything happening in the theme park itself, these things do still happen and occur. And at Alton Towers, where me and George go, there was a big Smiler crash on that, and that was, a big painful thing, especially living quite close to the park. It hit home a little bit, that did. And, watching an interview with the lady who actually lost her legs on that ride, Leah, she actually spoke about how something was kind of telling her to not get back on the ride, but she didn't listen to that and she got back on the ride because the ride was going through a lot of maintenance on that particular day when the crash occurred. And she was on the ride, she got on the ride, and then they had to get off it, while they did some maintenance on it. So they waited to get back on. And in that moment of getting on and off the ride, her higher self will have been guiding her that something's not right. But she chose to override that guidance and got back on and then experienced that crash. And that crash would be part of her higher learning. And, as traumatic and awful as it was, she will have learned through those experiences. And I've got, real feelings coming into my body when I'm talking about it because it may bring up so much pain, for people watching this or listening to this. But it's how our body tells us these things. It's that feeling, that gut instinct that something may happen. And, most of the time it's ego, but when it isn't, we just know. But we always have a choice, we have free will, whether we listen to our intuition or go a different route. So always take that in mind. So don't let that scare you or bring in fear. Instead, allow it to liberate you because you have a choice. You are the observer, and when you learn to recognize your body as a friend, magic comes into your life. I hope this helps. Have a great day, and I'll see you soon.